Welcome to Destination Jamaica. Well, on, everybody. We're so happy to have you here as our viewers, listeners, and community members. Now, today we're going to continue our historical journey. We're going to speak about the pirates in the Caribbean, in Jamaica. Can you believe it? That the Caribbean was once a battleground, a place where nations clashed and where pirates, buccaneers, privateers, and freebooters reigned supreme. At the heart of this dangerous world was Jamaica, and at the heart of Jamaica, the infamous port city of Port Royal, once known as the richest and the wickedest city of the world. You ready for this? Then take a seat and get something nice to eat and make Destination Jamaica share some of this knowledge with you. Now, before we get to the four famous pirates, let's talk about Port Royal. Have you ever visited? It's a town located at the end of the Palisadoes at the mouth of Kingston Harbor, and it have no rich history, also known as part of it being underwater due to the massive earthquake that came to Jamaica on the 7th of June 1692. We've done a video on Port Royal. We're not going to dive into it too much. We're going to link the video in the description so that you can get more information. But we cannot talk about the pirates without at least mentioning general information about Port Royal, a place where a lot of Jamaicans go now for the food, to feel giddy in the giddy house, and to stand on history. Now let's get into it. No, Port Royal was more than just a pirate haven. It was a city of excess, known as the wickedest city on earth. It was a place where fortunes were made and lost, where the taverns and brothels never closed, and where the law was whatever the strongest man said it was. Its location made perfect sense for it to be the base for the pirates, with its deep harbor and closeness to major shipping lanes. Now, Port Royal has seen many things, more than the rest of Jamaica. It has seen men and women live and died by the sword and pistol, and eventually many of them were swallowed by the earth. This is the story of those who sail under the black flag, who dared to defy the empires of the world, and who carved their names in the annals of history. Now let's get into the four pirates we're going to cover in this video. Now, the first one is Blackbird and the birth of a legend. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbird, was a touring figure in the world of piracy. His origins were shrouded in mystery, with claims of his birth ranging from Jamaica to Bristol. Whether he was born in England or Jamaica, his name was one to fear. Sailors and merchants alike shook whenever he was near. His terrifying visuals, with burning matches woven into his thick black beard, became the stuff of nightmares. Blackbeard's career as a pirate began under the command of the fearsome Captain Benjamin Hornigold. Together, they terrorized the Caribbean, you see? Capturing ships and amassing a fortune in gold, silver, and precious cargo. But it was Blackbird's capture of the French slave ship La Concorde in 1717 that cemented his reputation. He renamed the ship Queen Anne's Revenge and outfitted it with 40 guns, making it one of the most solid pirate ships of the era. Port Royal, with its bustling docks and taverns, became Blackbird's port. It was there that he forged alliances with other notorious pirates. The trio, along with their crews, turned the Caribbean into their playground, attacking ships and settlements with impunity. Now on to Charles Vane, the rise and fall of Charles Vane. Charles Vane was a pirate's pirate, fearless, cunning, and utterly ruthless. Born in England, Vane found his way to the Caribbean where he quickly made a name for himself that dominated the seas. But Vane's downfall came not from his enemies, but from within his own ranks. While operating in the Windward Passage between Cuba and Hispaniola, Charles attacked what he believed to be a merchant vessel. To his horror, it turned out to be a powerful French warship. After a brief exchange of cannon fire, Charles decided to flee, a cowardly act that did not sit well with his crew. Led by his quartermaster Jack, the crew accused Vane of being a coward and removed him from command. Now Vane was left stranded on a small sloop with a handful of loyal followers, and he was left to fend for himself. He quickly rebuilt his pirate fleet, but fate, you see, fate dealt him a cruel blow. While anchored in the Bay of Honduras, a hurricane struck, wrecking his ships and drowning most of his crew. Charles, stranded on a small island, was eventually rescued by a former buccaneer, Captain Holford, who turned him over to the authorities in Port Royal. Now, Charles Bain was then tried, found guilty, and hung at the gallows point in November 1720. Well, it doesn't pay to be a coward in the pirate world. Now let's move on to Calico Jack and the Hellcats. Calico Jack Rackham was known for his flamboyant style, his colorful cotton clothing earning him his nickname. But it was his association with two of the most fearful, fearsome female pirates in history, Anne Bonny and Mary Read, that truly set him apart. Together, they formed one of the most notorious pirate crews of the era. In late October 1720, Calico Jack's ship was anchored off Point Negril, Jamaica. The crew, celebrating their recent successes, were deep in their cups when a Navy sloop commanded by Captain Jonathan Barnett approached. Only Anne and Mary, disguised as men, were sober enough to raise the alarm. Despite their best effort to rouse the drunken crew, the pirates were quickly overwhelmed. Anne and Mary fought bravely, but were ultimately captured along with Rackham and the rest of the crew. At their trial in Port Royal, it was revealed that Anne and Mary were women, shocking the court. Both were sentenced to hang, but claimed they were pregnant, delaying their execution. Mary died in prison, but Anne's fate remains a mystery. Some say she was rescued by her wealthy father. Others say that she lived out her days alone, while some believe she and Mary escaped to live together in Louisiana. What fascinating history, right? Women being pirates, so that's a story we need to explore. Now, the last pirate we're going to cover is Sir Henry Morgan, probably the most famous of them all. The people know him. Now, let's get into a little bit of information. We try to keep it concise for you. We have more parts coming your way. Now, let's talk about Sir Henry Morgan. Now, he was one of the most successful and feared privateers of his time. Born in Wales, Morgan sailed to the West Indies in search of fortune and adventure. He quickly made a name for himself as a daring and ruthless leader, capturing Spanish ships and settlements with ease. By the age of 29, he was the captain of his own ship and a wealthy man. Now, Henry's most famous exploit was his raid on Panama in 1671. Leading a force of 1,200 men, Morgan crossed the Isthmus of Panama, enduring unimaginable hardships. Despite being outnumbered and weakened by hunger and disease, Henry and his crew captured the city, looting its treasures and taking thousands of prisoners. This raid, however, occurred after a peace treaty had been signed between England and Spain, leading to Morgan's arrest, and he was sent to London. Despite his apparent betrayal, Morgan was eventually knighted by King Charles II and returned to Jamaica as its governor. He spent his remaining years as a wealthy and respected planter, but his legacy as a pirate and privateer endured long after he left the earth. So it's very concise information we just gave you. Let us know if you enjoyed it. There's so much more to these pirates, right? Fascinating and a horrible history. Because even though we watch Pirates of the Caribbean and we love the Pirates movie, it seems like such a fantasy. But the people that they actually attack and they're, contributing to the wickedest and richest city in Jamaica must have been such a horrible reality for the locals, for those that they were against, for how they helped the English capture Jamaica. So it sounds pretty cool, but reality, if we should have been there during that time, could not have been further from that. No, that's it for now, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. You have a blessed one. We have more coming your way, of course. So much to share with you in the fields of sports, history, culture, travel, and more. Talk pretty soon.